Hi everyone, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. So let's start connecting today with the chakra of our knees and our topic for today, which is architecture. Let's begin with this topic, which is one of the beauty arts that affect us the most because it's about space. All of us are affected by it because we all live surrounded by space, by places. We all move through places in our life. We cannot escape from that. So all the spots that we can go has architecture. I hope to have time to say everything that I have to say about it. So let's go to understand what is architecture. Perhaps maybe architecture is not affecting us as the beauty like the other arts had, like music or painting, dancing, which are much more moving in our emotional. But even though architecture is kind of the one that affects us all every day, constantly, so it's important to know about it. Okay. Architecture comes from the word arche, that means principal, main, first. Tecton, that means constructor, the one that builds. That comes from the word tech in the language, meaning to weave. And the suffix ura, that means product. So basically, architecture is the product made by the first or the main constructor. So from where comes this name? From the time in which we started to need someone that guide the construction of something. So to go to the past, to go to the first people that started to build, we have to remember that we at first were nomads. We travel along the Africa and Middle East, and we were following the animals and building some tents and then keep going. So there were many people that were traveling around. But eventually, when they started to become sedentary, so they discovered the agriculture and they started to build the place for the animals and so on, they had to stay close to the animals and the fields that they were taking care of. So they started to have to build houses. And the way they did it was, of course, with mud, clay, and stones. So they started to make these kind of caves with these materials, and they created these first houses. This made that many of the people that became sedentary, they just did all the constructions as best as they could. They were trying to do their best. But what happened is that not all of them knew how precisely to do it. So with experience, some of these people stopped being the ones that worked in the fields, and they were the people helping how to build the structures. So they were kind of the masters of construction. So because of this, they were guiding others, and they were called, of course, the main constructors, which in Greece was called the architect. At first, of course, people weren't called architects because they had no idea what it was to be an architect. But there were people that had a lot of vision, that they knew how to make things, how to take matter and to make something new, a tool to solve problems. So it was said that they have ingenuity. Is that how you say it in English? Ingenuity. So they were kind of called that they had a genie, that they were genius. Let's go into the history of this. Of course, that people was not called like architects, as I said, it was ingenuity. So this means that you have a genius. Okay, ingenuity is that you have a genius. What is genius? Genius comes from the word gen, that means origin, that means to give birth. And it's a word that we relate to being born. In the old traditions, they said that in the moment you are born, you have someone that accompanies you throughout your life. Today, we call that the guardian, the angel that is guarding us through our life. We can call it our guides or masters. In the past, they call it the genie, which means the one that is from the moment of birth. That's the meaning of genie, okay? So this being that accompanies us from another levels, protecting us through our lives, through our life, this being was the one that we know now as a genie. The genie of the lamp, for example, the old traditions, that there were some genies that they sit here and they speak to you and they accomplish your dreams. Well, basically, this story is because the idea that the old people had in that time was that there were some genies from the moment of birth, that they were helping us to solve problems, to keep alive, and to have ingenuity, which means that whenever someone has a problem, this genie can tell to the ear what to do, so we know how to solve the problems. We ideas. They help us to solve our problems. So this is why we used to say that the genies accomplish our desires, our wishes. So throughout many years, thousands of years, the people used to celebrate the genies and to give something in return to those genies. And because they were called genie, because they were from the moment of birth, they would give these gifts and these ceremonies in the moment of birth every year. So every year they would celebrate and give offers to their genies. And that's the origin of celebrating the birthday. Before, we didn't celebrate birthday in all cultures. We were just celebrating the genie that we had. So that's interesting to know. And so it was the celebrating for them. So we call ingenuity to have this ability to know how to download ideas. Okay, so this is why the people that had the ability to take the matter and to do something to transform reality were called the engineers. Okay, engineers are the people that has the genie, that knows how to take the matter, to build a tool and to solve a problem. Okay, so basically that's the origin of engineering. Basically, that's the origin of the name. So that's a bit of story, so you know from where it came from. So when you take a look backwards and you see those people like Socrates, Plato, Da Vinci after many centuries, and all these kind of people, you will see that suddenly they knew about many things, about mathematics, biology. They knew about construction, about geometry, about spirituality. They kind of mix everything. They had knowledge of many different things. And why is that? Because they were holistic, because they loved wisdom. They loved to know a bit of everything. Today we have people that is specialized in only one thing, and they know a lot about only one thing. They are separated from the rest. That's why we have this perception that in the past the people knew much. So it's not that those people in the past were genius or they were special. It was basically that they were free to open their minds to know many things, to open their minds to accept many other options. That's not to be super human. No, it's basically that they were open to receive, to question reality, to wonder. They wanted to know the connection of everything. That was the point. So today, what people does is to go and study something, and I want to know this, and I have to be the best one on this, and all the rest, I don't care about the rest. I'm just gonna do this as best as I can. And that's what makes us so bad as a humanity, because we have no idea about many things. We just have idea of only our thing. But in that time, they were so open to any possibilities that they were kind of the hippies of that time. They were open to receive. They were having sex all together, all the time. They were taking drugs. They were just wondering, what if, like drug addicts or the people that use it, things. So they were that. They were living in peace. They were thinking, sharing, and open to everything. Open to receive, to understand, to share. They were not close to anything. That's why we look at them as genius, that they do many things. So eventually, some of these philosophers understand that everything in the universe, everything that they were trying to understand, was all related through mathematics and geometry. That you can take any one of the arts, any of the knowledge, anything that they could possibly try to understand, music, paintings, everything, and it will all summarize in numbers and patterns. And these numbers and patterns were kind of shaping the whole reality. So they started to understand that flowers, trees, the sun, the moon, astrology, astronomy, biology, arts, everything was related with numbers and geometry. That was the summarize of everything. So what they started to do is to say, if we want to understand God, the divinity, we have to think in terms of numbers and geometry. So we have to live that by using that to feel the connection with the divinity. So what they did was to take the ingenious people to turn all these numbers and geometry into one of the main and most important arts that could make us feel the divine, which is architecture. In that time, an architect had to know a little bit of everything, had to know about nature, botanics, mathematics, music, biology, and spirituality, about light and color. An architect needed to know God, to understand the divinity. Al universo se le llamaba el gran arquitecto, el arquitecto que diseñó todas las cosas. Y los arquitectos en la Tierra solo estaban tratando de entender cómo había creado las cosas. This is why they created the idea that God, the universe, was called the great architect. And this great architect was the one that designed all things, that designed everything through mathematics and geometry. So the architects were willing to connect with the idea of the divine through construction. So people eventually, when they accomplished to get a bit of everything to understand the whole, they were able to build things like the pyramids, for example, that even today, people have no idea how they were built. And this is basically because people from today are looking into the pyramids from the point of view of just engineering, of just structural construction, slavery, architecture. But in that time, it was not only that, it was many other things. So this is why architecture is one of the most important ones to understand the whole universe, not only to make a planning and to build a house or a building. Architecture goes beyond, goes to try to understand how everything was created, how to build reality. And this is because architecture is related with two main things: the void, the emptiness, and the space. So when we say void is a place where nothing exists, and that eventually something starts to occupy a space on it. Like, for example, a desert, a forest, a mountain. They are architecture, they are constructions, because they have a mathematics on it, they have a geometry on it. So from the void of nothing appears the space that starts to reproduce in many shapes. So space is basically where the architecture can be done. So this space, when you modify the space, whoever modifies the space, it turns immediately that space into architecture. Like a very old human that creates a path along a place, someone that constructs a small dam, someone that makes a boat, that carves the land to sow a seed. Whatever someone is doing with intention to modify a space where that person is considered the first builder or constructor of something, even if it is just a tool, not a house. That's why it's architecture. Whatever we do with ourselves, inside or outside, is basically architecture. So if we want to modify ourselves, to transform ourselves, we have to become architects. So to build ourselves into a new shape, into a new reality, we have to take in account the secret trinity of architecture that I tried to write here, just in case that. I don't know if you are going to see it, but anyway, I will let it here. Beauty firmness. Okay, sacred trinity. The sacred trinity of architecture: beauty, firmness, utility. This sacred trinity of architecture was written and signed by a man called Vitruvius in the 1st century before Christ. For sure, you know the name Vitruvius because Da Vinci has done the Man of Vitruvius, which is a drawing that he made honoring this architect that has written how the architecture works, and he established this the trinity of architecture. And what Da Vinci was trying to do was to honor this man that has designed the basements of geometry and mathematics and the construction itself. Even if today architecture has changed a lot, of course, that these three are not the base of architecture anymore, because today the architecture is much more different. Architecture doesn't need exactly today to be related to beauty. It doesn't really have to be related with firmness, because it doesn't need to be firm exactly. And it doesn't have to be useful for some certain things. Because today is very different the way in which we see the architecture. But the goal of understanding this is not about the reality of architecture, but much more related to the concepts of architecture. Okay, the meanings behind the reality. So the reason why I say that these three maybe are not specifically today related to architecture is because these are related to the canon of the Greek Roman cultures, that they had this idea that architecture was to build something, a building. Okay, so this building has to be firm in order for it to not fall down. It has to be useful for a state, for the population, and of course had to be beauty according to the culture that they had in that time. But of course today architecture is much more different. Maybe architects today can build a space where it doesn't need for firmness, because it's a free space that is considered much more a container of a situation than something that must be whole. And maybe it's not useful, maybe it's just something of expression that is related to be used for anything precisely. Okay, and beauty is relative. Okay, so from our point of view today in our current architecture, maybe these three are not the main one, but in the essence of the beginnings of architecture, in the ideology of architecture, these three would be kind of the sacred trinity. So let's try to understand these three according to our own process, so we can become our builders, our own constructors of our own being. Remember, for the ancient ones, the universe was the great architect, the ones that could design everything. So everything is us too. We are also part of this creator, of this creation itself. So this is why we also have within ourselves power of creation. We also can build our own realities. So the first thing is that we have to remember that the main structures in the universe are created through particles. Particles are the main and first reality that we can perceive in the universe through the waves of time and space. So these particles has two different ways of being seen, which is positive and negative. And this positive and negative are trying to find a medium point to storage energy, to find balance. And this is why they create atoms, the conjunction of different particles that will find a utility in their own energy, which is exchange and save energy. This is why utility comes from. So from that atomic reality, they start to build structures that are bigger and bigger, and they evolve trying to, of course, to save energy and exchange energy. So after all these thousands of years of evolution, we have these bodies made up with cells and organs. And when we look into them, each one of them has a goal, a purpose of exchanging and storing energy. Okay, so each one is useful for something. So each one has a utility. So then, with this exchange of energy, these different parts of energy will try to find a structure that holds as much as possible this exchange energy and saving energy. And that's what we call firm. Firmness is the idea of holding as much as possible one structure. The first one that exists is the tetrahedron. The tetrahedron is the basement for all the patterns that will exist in the universe, because it's the most stronger one. It's impossible to break in the universe. So the idea of firmness would be to find the patterns that hold the energy. So of course that then this one will find different other ways, like this one here. I have more, but this one's here. So all these structures are going to be the firmness that the structure needs in order to save energy. Okay? In order to save energy. Perfect. So then from this multiplication comes the third part, which is beauty. Beauty comes when you have these structures and suddenly you are able to design structures from it, like this beautiful flower of life, or here with this structure, suddenly you get this, and you find the Star of David, and many other structures that will appear, giving beauty to all creation. Many possibilities to create. So, of course, that this is the reason why ancient ones call God the great architect, because by mathematics and geometry, have here the utility of a structure, the firmness of a structure, and the beauty through its multiplication. And the way in which we use this building in ourselves is recognizing, remembering that each one of these structures are organs, are emotions, are chakras. So when we start to recognize which chakra is each one of these, if I know the utility, the useness, the utility of each one of these structures in my body, when I know my organs, when I know my chakras, if they are useful for me, what things I can use from me, if they are firm, if I am in my own axis, if I find myself strong or what are my weaknesses, when I recognize the beauty that I can give to the world through my attributes, my gifts, so I will be building myself up. So basically, to become the builder of my own reality, of my own self, is to know this mathematics and geometry, and to know how useful are each part of self, how firm I am, and what are my attributes that I can share with the world. Once said this, let's go to the information for today. The vibration is Ru. The statement is, I am the guardian of the path. The code for today is the divine. Commonly considered like the god or the goddess, doesn't imply that this kingdom is a plane of superiority of an entity that is above, but goes through. The divine kingdom is where all the potentialities of the I am converge. All the higher selves, the supreme ideas of the web of consciousness and the universal mind interact, creating reality in all dimensions and planes of consciousness or parallel universes. Thus, the kingdom of divinity is within every atom, and thereby within every reality and living being. Sit comfortable, close your eyes, and concentrate in your breathings. I become aware of the space around me, the body I inhabit, and my own breath. I use my imagination to make every object of this room disappear. I become aware of how every one of them vanish until it does so the roof, the walls, and the floor. Until there is nothing more than void and myself in the center of it. I bring all my attention, all my focus onto only one dot in that void. I bring all my energy, staring at this dot. I take deep breath, and as I stare at this point, it becomes a spark, and this spark divides into many others, igniting a fire. This fire grows and grows, until it enlightens my surroundings, and I can feel the heat of it in my skin. I become aware that this fire is the essence of my soul, and from it I can build a home, the home of my dreams. I take this fire with my hands, and I start using it to build around me in this void, the house of my dreams. And I do it softly and slowly, like in a dance, moving my body in every direction and taking this fire, building up the walls, the rooms, the gardens. I become really aware of what am I building, for I am the constructor, I am the architect of the home. I recognize the design of the home. I feel that I can trace the plans, the designs, growing this house up to the sides or below. I become aware of every door, every window, the furniture, the kitchen, the walls. I recognize how ingenious I am building up my home. I designed in the center of this house a structure, a metal structure that remembers me how firm I have to be, how beauty it can become, and that is useful for me to create my future. So I set the intention that this structure can hold all the things that allow me to build my future. So I activate the structure. Remember it that this future is my path and I am the guardian of this path. I am the guardian of the path. I am the guardian of the path. I am the guardian of the path. I have beauty, firmness, and unity in me. I have. Take a breath, and each one at its own time, come back here and now. And for those who are following the task of this month, take the energy, put it into the water, and pour the water on the plants that we have sowed. Thank you everybody for being here another day, and see you tomorrow, as always, at the same time.